you know, it would be fair and balanced if Hitler was running the country and we said, oh, you know, let's kill some Jews, this is what Hitler said. But Hitler's a scumbag nut, and if the media was doing their job, that's what they would say. They would say, this is a completely ludicrous statement, we shouldn't kill Jews, and this is a ludicrous statement because people from our own, you know, authorities found that there was no explosive material in this cartridge. What a credible journalist would have done is called out Obama on his claim and hammered home that this is just Obama's opinion, and it might be to do with his political agenda. Our experts immediately at the scene at East Midlands Airport found no explosive material. How would Obama know any better than them? Was Obama there? Or were our men not in on that part of the script until they were informed a bit later on? I just find the whole thing really, really hard to swallow.
Hi, this is Phoebe from Empire Office Supplies. Can I speak to your supply manager, please? Earl, thanks. Hi, Earl. This is Phoebe from Empire Office Supplies. I'd like to talk to you about your toner needs.
I don't need any toner.
I'm hearing what you're saying, but at our prices, everyone needs toner.
Not me.
May I ask why?
You want to know why? You want to know why?
I surely do.
Okay. I don't need any toner because I'm going to kill myself.
It's all a big joke. Toner ink explosives? Come on now. What's next? Exploding breast implants? Oh wait, yeah, they've already warned us about them as well. Totally ridiculous. Anyway, the next claim is that the explosive they found that they didn't find was PETN. Don't know where the evidence is for that, but the media have claimed that it was PETN, which they also strangely claim is hard to detect and is why it wasn't picked up on to start with. Well, in all the research I've done, it's not hard to detect at all. It's standard procedure. It's already tested for in airports. Here's a report from the Washington Post after the Detroit underwear bomber, who used PETN even, and it says, the explosive allegedly used in the failed bombing plot aboard a transatlantic jetliner over Detroit on Christmas Day could have been detected by existing screening equipment, and the failure to do so reflects significant weakness in aviation security and intelligence. Well, no, not really, because they let him on the plane. Detectors that test swabs wiped on passengers and baggages for traces of explosives were used because weren't used because they are generally reserved for travellers who trigger added security. Well, he should have triggered added security because he was on a watch list, but of course they let him on the plane. So the article itself, you know, basically goes on to talk about how we need the body scanners and whatever, and increase security. But you can tell by the way it was written that they quite clearly know how to test for PETN. It is part of the regular testing procedure. All they have to do is swab the alleged bombs, put it in their little device, and it tells them exactly what it is. If it's not there, it's not there. And experts immediately on the scene that swabbed the packages within minutes found that nothing was there. It was only after Obama said that there was explosives that the story changed and our media started to say that there were explosives. And then Cameron comes out and says they could have been used to blow up the planes in the air. Complete sensationalism based on absolutely no evidence. He just decides they could have blown up in the air. Why, did they have timing devices now? Were they linked to mobile phones on the ground? They're just making this up as they go along. So if we recap, no evidence that the packages were sent from Yemen, no real evidence that the packages were even bombs capable of exploding. So we'll move on to the third point. And this is that the leader of the Yemeni al-Qaeda cell is an American-born preacher called Anwar al-Awlaki, who inspired the Fort Hood gunman, supposedly had ties to the underwear bomber and the Times Square bomber, all of them of course failed attempts. Well, firstly, we've got to make the point that is this guy even relevant? Because there's no proof the packages came from Yemen. So what if he's the leader of some Yemen group? And, you know, there's no real suspect in this case yet. So how do we know there are any ties to al-Awlaki at all? It's just totally sort of lies upon top of lies. But if we play devil's advocate and assume everything they've said is true, then we should delve into the history of this al-Awlaki guy. And lo and behold, he's an American intelligence asset who just happened to be dining at the Pentagon months after 9/11. Fox News reported on it, and here's a report from the Daily Mail here in the UK. It says, an al-Qaeda leader who is one of the most wanted men in the world was invited for lunch at the Pentagon in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, a new report has claimed. New documents have been obtained which apparently detail how Anwar al-Awlaki, the first American on the CIA's kill or capture list, rubbed shoulders with high-ranking military personnel just months after the atrocities. Unbelievable. And this is the guy that appears to be taking Bin Laden's boogeyman place, as Mr. Britt rightfully said. And I'll go to a clip of Webster Tarpley on the Alex Jones show talking about al-Awlaki, because he's probably, you know, got it a bit more detailed than I could say. So let me quickly play that clip. The time's flying by today.
Well, if you look at my website, Tarpley.net, my nickname for this guy is Awlaki the CIA Lackey. I think that makes it easy to remember. So he's Anwar al-Awlaki, and he's a provocateur working for U.S. intelligence, and he's part of this gaggle of murderous thugs, but of course also provocateurs. In other words, people who are used for political purposes. And typically what Awlaki, his past, if I can just reconstruct it off the top of my head, he was in a mosque in northern Virginia, where I think a couple of the 9/11 alleged hijackers, the patsies for that, were attending. And then he was over here in Maryland, and there he got connected to, I guess that must have been Major Hassan. And later on then, he's connected to the underwear bomber. Now, connected simply means that if you have a patsy that has reached the point of ripeness and maturity to do something, and you want to deploy the patsy as a kamikaze in some way, you want to be able to say, if you're the U.S. intelligence community, that this was al-Qaeda doing it. So the way you do this is to have them exchange emails with Awlaki the CIA lackey, and then you can say, aha, again, we told you so. It's al-Qaeda. They do exist, and they do act. Now, as far as I know, Awlaki is in Yemen, and he's in Yemen because it was a commitment. You could see it about a year to 2 years ago. The U.S. wanted to build up branch offices of al-Qaeda, and they needed to make this credible, right? There's al-Qaeda in the Maghreb because they want to attack Algeria and Tunisia and maybe Morocco and places like this. But they also wanted to have al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, in Yemen. And the reason to have it in Yemen is that Yemen, of course, is strategic because it happens to control the exit from the Red Sea. In other words, most of the traffic that comes out of the Suez Canal has got to go down the Red Sea and then out into the Indian Ocean by Yemen. But the other advantage of Yemen is it gives you a chance to run destabilization operations into Saudi Arabia, which is something you have to do from the point of view of these people at certain times. So if you have al-Awlaki in Yemen, you can argue, aha, there's al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. And the other thing is, in order to make sure that they had some members, this was the case where they let some people out of Guantanamo. The people who had been rotting away in Guantanamo, and they said, all right, fine, we're going to let you out. You go to Yemen. And then, with a wink and a nod, they said, of course, you got to swear not to become a terrorist again. And, of course, they said, yes, we'll do that. And then, of course, once they get over there, they disappear and they join Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. All of this is completely planned. In other words, this is a bloody theater. It's a farce. It's a dog and pony show. It's designed to dupe people. And the idea that Al-Awlaki is there, I mean, it reminds you of these things like, Bin Laden treated in a U.S. military hospital in somewhere in the Gulf, right, around the time of 9/11. It simply shows the intimate links between the intelligence and the military intelligence people and this stable of patsies and provocateurs, double agents, who these are the winning ones, right? Al-Awlaki, I'm sure, knows what he's doing, but then the people that he's working with are psychotics, fanatics, mental deficients, drug addicts, and so forth, sort of human pawns that they're quite expendable and can be used. And the idea that, they would kill, the big brouhaha, of course, is that Obama says that he's got the ability to kill Al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey, whenever he wants. Well, this is also not unheard of, right? If Al-Awlaki overlives his usefulness, then he can be liquidated in some spectacular way.
And interestingly, Mr. Britt pointed me to a story which I saw on the news last night also, about a woman named Roshana Chowdhury who attacked former government minister Stephen Timms with a knife. And when I was watching this news report, I thought it was very odd to start with, because her reasoning for attacking this Timms guy was because he supported the Iraq War. Now, as much as that angered Muslims and white British people at the time, why would she decide to get radical about it in 2010, so many years after the invasion? And then the story seemed odd because Timms didn't seem to want her to be prosecuted. If somebody stabs you, why wouldn't you want them to be prosecuted unless you think perhaps they weren't responsible or had been forced to do it, or you really did have a guilty conscience about supporting Iraq? But then it was reported that she was mentally ill, and that's what tipped her over the edge. And of course, mental illness is always a theme with these suspicious assassination attempts, these lone nuts, But the smoking gun is that she has since claimed to be inspired by sermons from Anwar al-Awlaki on the internet. And it's so convenient how they put this on the news cycle just as al-Awlaki was being promoted as the ink cartridge mastermind. To me, it's all a massive psyop. This young lady was said to be a gifted student, so why would she, go mentally ill and start watching terrorist tapes? Very strange. And BBC reported Chowdhury had been a student in English and Communications at King's College London, and in her first 2 years had been a prize-winning student who was predicted to get a first. She was also a gifted linguist who was fluent in Arabic, Bengali and French. She dropped out of her studies at the start of 2010 and began downloading extremist material, according to police examination of her computer. What? That just reeks of some kind of intelligence operation. It's so illogical, and out of the blue you have this, prize-winning student, and she decided to drop out and watch some terrorist tapes on the internet. That makes absolutely no sense. There's either more to the story or it's just completely made up. I just don't understand it. But the result, of course, is that this al-Awlaki intelligence asset now appears to be a legitimate threat in Britain because he got some crazy woman to stab someone, and he's a threat around the world because Obama says he is, and because he's linked to all these failed attacks that all had PSYOP written all over them, all had false flag written all over them. One of my earlier videos was about the underwear bomber, got 45,000 views. I think that's about the most viewed video I've ever made, and it pretty much lays out how that thing was just a complete false flag. But let's take a step back. We know there's little evidence to support the official story of this attack, and we know that al-Awlaki has ties to the American intelligence and a string of failed and dubious terrorist attacks, like the underwear bomber and so on. So I think it's fair to say we can make an educated guess that this is most likely a false flag. But then we've got to ask, who benefits? Why would they do it? And in my opinion, it works on so many levels for the establishment.